After Joan took control of areas in the city center that Stephen was controlling, he ordered the appointment of a new leader there, and the criteria were strict. So he must be experienced in gang work and able to do them, and Andrew, Michael, Kevin and Stanley must agree to his appointment, and indeed Kevin's assistant was chosen. And he was Jerry, who proved his worthiness in many actions during smuggling and evasion while he was transporting drugs to the city, and he always gave Kevin good opinions. And his news spread even reached to Joan himself. Everyone approved this choice and he was actually appointed to this sensitive position for Joan. Immediately, Joan ordered that new members of the gang to be appointed, in addition to reinforcements from the 3 gangs, and to provide them with weapons and to allocate large financial budgets for this gang. John knew that he would have a great rival in the city, which is the old gang leader, Philip, and that he did not form all these gangs to finally fail in front of Philip. So he always urged Andrew to this matter, and Andrew indulged in his new business in the city center and was absent for nights away from his wife. After several weeks, Jerry's gang became strong, organized, and ready to start any business that are required to be done by them. But they had not really started any confrontations or drug sale deeds. Meanwhile, Andrew did not forget his communication and relationship with the mayor. On the contrary, he sometimes visited him alone and sometimes with his wife. And the mayor became a strong support for them in any dilemma they might face. And Joan was not skimping on him with any amount he requested until the mayor liked this relationship, and what he received from Joan and Andrew became more than his expectations. The chief of the police was an obstacle between the mayor and Andrew, and he was constantly asking about this relationship, but he did not find clear answers in this regard. And he always talked about this with his colleagues in the police and did not come to his mind that the mayor was complicit with them in their work. It happened that the mayor spoke with Andrew about this and said to him, "Can you not ask to transfer him from this city or any other matter to get him away from you?" And he said at the time, "Yes, I think this will happen." Joan knew about the matter and got angry and said, "No, I do not want this man to be removed from his position. It is not the right time to get rid of him, we must be patient." He told the mayor to postpone consideration of this man's matter until the appropriate time comes. Andrew told the mayor about this decision, and he was surprised and said what the difference between now or later is. He illustrated to him that if he was transferred now, he might talk about your tries to prevent arresting of our gangs as revenge on you, and at that time your situation will be reviewed and searched for your illegal actions. And you will enter into a series of problems for which you will not find an outlet, and we do not want that. The mayor was afraid and said, "Yes, indeed, this is what will happen, and it will be my end." The mayor stopped for a while and said, "Andrew, I was enthusiastic about transferring the chief of the police, and now you brought me all this information. Who told you all this? Who gives you the information? Who exactly do you work for?" Andrew laughed and said that I work for X. He said to him, "Who is X this?" He said, "X is the one who leads all these gangs in the east and in the city center. He is the one who finances them with money and drugs, and manages them administratively." The mayor said, "Do you know him personally?" He said, "No, believe me, I do not know him. I do not know where he lives and I did not even see his face." The mayor said, "You scared me, Andrew. Who are we dealing with? Who is this man?" Andrew said to him, "Do not ask too much, and believe me, this man will not harm you unless you think about his betrayal. I have met clever and shrewd ones before, but I have not met anyone like him. That he has decisions that I do not expect, and I think between me and myself what these decisions are. But it proves to me later that he is the right one, even if I think about is proved to be the wrong thing. Do not fear, and I will tell you what X says to me every time. Don't ask too much, and the time will come for all the answers." In the central part of the city, news reached Philip that Stephen's gang began to disintegrate, and that almost certain news confirmed his death already at the hands of these gangs. Philip did not believe this news and started sending his gang members to confirm, and actually confirmed this to him. The orders came from Joan to Andrew that the proposed gang name, X, must be written on the places of Jerry's gang's control in the city center. and in the east of the city as well, so that everyone knows that the new downtown gang is an extension of the eastern gangs that have already gained a great reputation in the country, and people started to fear of them and of facing them. Most of Philip's men returned to him, confirming to him that the new gangs in the city are an extension of the eastern gangs. And they have already confirmed that they had stormed the place of Stephen's gang and killed all his men and took Stephen to an unknown place, and that they had killed him. Philip went mad and did not know what to do. The gangs are very strong, and the strongest gang, which was his peer, was Stephen's gang at the time it disintegrated and its leader was killed. What will be his fate and fate of his gang? Are they going to kill him or affect his business in the city center? Andrew was talking to Joan about this gang, and they did not pose a great danger to him. But he was waiting for orders from Joan to act accordingly. Joan answered, "Do not rush this stupid fool. He will do some foolishness and we will act at the time." Andrew said, "And why do we wait for him? Let us pounce on him and get rid of him as we did to his colleague Stephen." Joan said, "As you are usually hasty and do not look for results much, all you have is good except that you ask too much and hurry too much," Joan said while laughing. The provocation of Jerry's gang increased to Stephen, as their selling of drugs was in public, and was very prosperous and in sight of Philip's gang members without the ability to respond. And the news was coming to Philip, and he did not know what to do to stop them. And one night, Philip was very drunk and said to his gang members, "I want to know how strong they are. Go and kill only 2 salesmen from X gang, and let us wait for the response of this scum." Those who were sitting with him began to look at each other. Some responded, "Yes, cowards. I am Philip. Do you know who I am? I am the actual ruler of the city. These are cowards and scum. I will finish them as soon as possible." And he shouted at them and said, "Go and kill them as soon as possible." 2 of his gang went on the street and actually killed 2 of the X gangs. The confrontation was not great. They were driving a car while they were hurrying. The driver started shooting his pistol in their direction, while the other one got out of the car window with a machine gun and emptied what was inside of the bullets towards the 2 men who died at once. Meanwhile, one of the X gang cars was close to the place, and they saw this incident, and this man drove behind Stephen's gang car and called Jerry, and told the news and ordered him not to shoot them just to make sure where they are going. Who will they follow? He told him that they were Philip's followers, of course, and he answered him, "Do what I tell you, just make sure where they are going." And when they parked their cars in front of Stephen's gang, this man came back and called Jerry and said to him, "Did I not tell you that they work for Stephen?" He told him, "Well, come back and we will see how the response will be." The news came to Joan from Andrew about what had happened. Joan laughed and said, "I knew that this was going to happen. Listen to me well. I will not forgive you or Michael, the protection official for X gang, for any mistake. I want Michael to go to their gang and kill only those who resist, but I do not want Philip to die or be caught. Let him flee, but it is also necessary that the headquarters of the gang must be burned and turned it into ashes, so that Philip knows that what he did will not pass normally, and that this time is a fire, and the second time will be killing without mercy." Andrew said, "And why? It is an appropriate opportunity to kill him in the first attack, and we will get rid of our last opponent in the city, and the city will be for us all." Joan said, "This is what I do not want now, Andrew. For everything, there is a suitable time to implement it. Do what I command you only, and do not reduce anything of it." Michael came with his gang and surrounded the place, and Michael went down without introductions and started shooting his automatic gun at the headquarters of the gang. And he was advancing, and all his gang members without stopping. In fact, Philip gang members were most afraid of the X gang. And they knew what happened to Stephen's gang and how they were killed in the most horrific types of killing, so there was no strong resistance among Michael and them. Philip looked from the top and saw the weapon and the men, their strength, and the reactions of his gang members, so he knew that he would be arrested and killed as he had done before with Stephen. So he rode his car from the back and fled. Michael knew that Philip was there, and that he would run, and after making sure that he had already left the place, Michael and his gang started burning the place in the morning. Smoke was still rising from the place, which is the time when Philip returned with some of his friends to inspect the place and saw that the place had disappeared as if it had not been. So his anger intensified, but he was certain that the X-gang could not be conquered and that he would inevitably be eliminated. Philip gathered his diaspora, his gang members, and continued his work, trying to avoid the X-gang, and he contacted the chief of the police, but he refused to cooperate with him regarding getting rid of the X-gang. All the ways were closed in front of Philip to end this gang. Moreover, he and his gang became acclimatized to the new situation in the city as for gangs. In the meantime, John's business in smuggling, protection and sale is still going smoothly, and every time when Andrew faced a problem, he would solve it by force of arms through Michael or contact the mayor, who used to facilitate every matter he was asked of. Joan was still living in the woods as well, occupying his time as usual by reading and watching the news of the gangs that work for his own. He was calling his beloved Katie and following up on the village news and making sure that there were no problems in the village, especially his family members. And he had ordered Meckel to pay a monthly deduction to the teacher, Mick, and to ask Mick to deliver it to Joan's father and tell him that this amount was from his son Joan. All of this was coordinated between Joan and his teacher, Mick. Joan ordered Andrew to send Kevin and some men to Philip and offer him a reconciliation between him and the X-gangs without the two gangs interfering in the drug sale business with the other gang. Andrew objected to Joan's order and said to him, "Do you compare Gang X with this rickety gang that we can eliminate them in less than one day? Why would we insult the X-gang with this show?" Joan said to him, "This is part of the plan, Andrew. We want reconciliation with him now and the time will come for everything, just do it." Kevin went to Philip and Philip was excited about this meeting. Andrew ordered Kevin to make Philip feel that he is still strong and that his gang is still strong. And when Philip felt this feeling from Kevin, he changed his tone of voice and felt that he was the master of the situation and said, "Let me think about it." And Philip's friends look at him and one of them said, "It is our only hope to stay and practice our business freely." Kevin responded firmly that this issue is not worth all this thinking. "Tell me now whether you agree or not, and do not forget what happened between you and the X-gang and their burning of your location before." Philip looked at Kevin and said, "I will accept the offer," and the two agreed that each gang would sell in its specified location and that no one would attack the other's area. Kevin went back to Andrew and on the way he called him and said, "You should have told me to kill this arrogant. I almost slapped him in the face. We have insulted ourselves with this agreement that this insect thinks himself up to now with the same strength as before the X-gang." Andrew said, "The time will come for everything. I thank you, Kevin, for everything." The work of the two gangs continued without clashes, and Joan was following these actions, and he was keen that Philip works in all his comfort in his area. And when the situation in the city stabilized, Joan ordered Andrew to recruit one of Philip's gang for his favor and to remain working for Philip's gang. Andrew replied that it is not an easy thing, but it is not impossible. "I will find a solution to this issue and tell you about it as soon as possible." This matter was discussed with Jerry, the leader of Gang X in the city center, who showed willingness to try. Jerry began a lot of searches for someone to trust and help them in this matter for many weeks until he found someone from his gang who was a little young but had many relationships with gang members of Philip. And he said to him, this matter is very easy for him, and assured him to keep this matter a secret between them and promised him to do so. After a while, this young man responded to Jerry that he had found one of them and he was suitable, but he did not talk to him about the matter. This other young man is working with Philip and is responsible for transporting Philip's drugs from place to place. Philip knows him personally and meets with him continually, and even he can contact him by the mobile phone at any time. Jerry asked the young man, "And why do you think he would agree?" He told him that this young man was asking Philip for a value of treatment for his son. But he always ignored him, and this matter worried him, and he always told us about this matter to us while we were in the bar. Immediately Jerry ordered him to arrange a meeting with this young man as soon as possible. The name of this young man was Nelson. Jerry met with him in a bar with the young man who works for his favor, and he said to him, "Listen to me, Nelson. I heard that you are suffering from financial distress related to your son's illness," and he said to him, "Yes. I see my son die in front of me every day and I cannot do anything for him. So he told him, what about Philip? Why does he not pay for you for your hard work? You are, as far as I know, responsible for transporting drugs for the gang. He said, yes. I endure a lot and earn little. Jerry told him, I will take care of all your son's medical expenses. Nelson couldn't believe what he heard and said, are you speaking truthfully? He said, yes, and if you wanted it now, I would give you all the money. Nelson was very happy, but he paused a little and the features of his face changed, and sadness appeared on his face and said, I cannot accept all this. I really hope to accept this offer, but I cannot. Jerry said to him, don't worry, I understand your fears. You are afraid of Philip, are you? He said, yes, if he knew, he would kill me and the members of my family. He started shaking his head sadly and repeating, I cannot. Then Jerry said, whoever told you that Philip will know that I will help you, we will keep this matter between me and you only, and no one will know about it. Nelson said, is it really what you say? Nobody will know actually. He said, yes, I promise you that. From tomorrow, your son will enter the hospital and you will not bear a single dollar of treatment expenses. And he begged Anderson and said, please give me a minute. I will tell my wife this news, and while he opens his mobile phone, he looked at Jerry and said to him, wait, what do you want in exchange for this large amount? What do you want me to do? We are gangsters and we understand each other. There is no money for nothing. Tell me the whole offer, please be clear with me. Jerry said, and I also like clarity. Say how much you gain with Philip, and I will give you the double. Nelson replied, I still do not understand what you want from me. Jerry said, I want you to work in my favor and I will give you the double and I will take care of your son's treatment. This is just the beginning and still the rest of the offer if you accept. Nelson started to think and looked at his friend who works for Jerry's gang and said, I agree, yes, I agree. Provided that Philip does not know about my work with you. So Jerry promised him and told him all that is required of you is to transmit important news to us from time to time, so Nelson agreed. After that, secret meetings were held between Nelson and Jerry, and many contacts in which he provided him with news of the gang and all their work. Joan was rejoiced at this news and ordered Nelson to be given twice as much as Jerry had agreed with him. And as the days went by, Nelson became extremely loyal to Jerry. Contacts were going on from time to time between Philip and the chief of the police and his question about Gang X. No new news is mentioned. The police chief could not stop them and Philip could not stop them either. But the police chief denies any contact with them. And what is the matter that made the mayor defend them? And he mentioned to Philip that he was amazed at all that. This mayor is known for his integrity and that he did not reach this position except his record is very clean. So why does he defend them in every matter? That takes place between him and the mayor until he became suspicious of his affiliation to them. And Philip used to tell him that I do not expect that. The authority and strength of the mayor if he wanted is greater than X-Gang if he wanted. He would order the top administration in the country to bring the army and end this gang as if they were not existed. And the police chief said, yes, you are really right, it is a confusing matter. Joan arranged for a meeting between him and Andrew, and told him that he wanted to delude Philip that Gang X is in close cooperation with the mayor and that this is your chance with the chief of police to get rid of this gang. Andrew told him, listen, X. I have been listening to you and doing what you say without any underdo. But this time, I expect that you have miscalculated. How do you reveal this dangerous secret? This is the beginning of the end for the mayor, and it may be for our gang as well. He said, do not fear, everything is going as planned. Jerry met Nelson and he began to mention what Andrew had said to him, and Nelson was asking, and he said, believe me, I don't know the reason. Just do this and tell me what is happening. And Anderson arranged this matter until he met Philip alone at the gang headquarters and told him, leader, I have news that you will be very happy with about Gang X. He said, and what is it? He said that the mayor is cooperating with them and he is the one who provides them with protection. Philip told him, are you sure of that? He said, yes, I saw one of the X's gang got out of the mayor's car and fervently bid him farewell. Before he got off, he was inspecting an envelope he had given him. I think it was a bribe to the mayor from Gang X. Philip left him and got into his car quickly to meet the chief of the police and told him what he heard from Nelson, and the police chief said, "I was sure that there was something between them. But I was not sure of that. It is my chance and your chance, Philip. I will confront the mayor with that, and I will threaten him with that, and he will accept anything I say to him." Philip said, "What about me? Will you leave Gang X out of this deal?" The chief of the police said, "I will get rid of this gang and I will get a promotion in exchange for my threat to him. Do you understand? I will hit 2 goals with 1 throw." Philip said, "Yes, do it. Let's live our old days." Joan and Andrew were aware of all this, but they knew their reactions, and news was coming to them from Jerry through Anderson, as Philip had said. "Can you identify me the person who met the mayor from among the members of the X gang?" He said, "Yes, of course, I know where he stands to sell drugs." He said, "I want you to watch him closely, and when he meets the mayor again, call me directly," and he promised him to do that. The news came to Andrew and he rejoiced with this result, and he knew that Philip was really a fool, as Joan said, and he was surprised that he was deceived by this prank, and how he did not know who he was employing with, and he was sure that Joan really was accurate in his choices of those who worked for him. Nelson began to delude Philip that he was watching this person who belonged to the X-gang until orders came to inform Philip that this person had already parked his car in front of the mayor's office, and that he was carrying an envelope that he believed had money inside. Philip immediately called the police chief and told him with confidence, "The mayor fell in the trap, which is that he is now receiving a bribe from Gang X." The police chief did not believe this news and got into his car and went to the mayor's office. Jerry was standing far away watching the situation, and indeed the chief of police stopped and went down and told Jerry Andrew of the arrival of the chief of the police. And then Andrew called the mayor and said to him, "Listen to what I will tell you. Now the chief of the police will come to you and threaten you that you work for Gang X. Do not deny and do not prove the matter. Just listen to what he will tell you. Maybe he will start threatening you. Show him that you are only afraid and that you will do some of what he says, and ask him to give you some time." The mayor started saying, "How did you know? And what you are talking about, Andrew?" He replied to him, "I don't have time to explain everything I said to you. Do everything I tell you and promise you that you will not get harmed by anything. On the contrary, we will get rid of this stupid soon." During this conversation, the police chief entered and was in a hurry and opened the door with some force. The mayor said, "What's wrong with you and why are you entering in this way? You must have an important topic to enter like this." He said, "I already have an important issue that concerns you and that pertains to X-gangs." The mayor said, "And what is my relationship with these gangs? All these things are your affairs. This gang and you were the one who was a barrier between me and that matter, and I was unaware of the reason until I made sure that you were receiving bribes from them. In fact, the man who works for X-gangs did not actually enter to the mayor, but rather entered the bathroom inside the building, threw the envelope and left the building to complete the scene that he gave the mayor the bribe." The mayor started stuttering and telling the chief of the police, "And how did you know about this matter, and how do you prove it?" He said that, "I know everything that is going on between you and them, and if you want me to prove it, the man who works for them has just left your office and handed you the money." The mayor remembered Andrew's instructions that he should not deny anything or repent anything, and he promptly asked him, "Let's finish this matter. Chief of Police, what do you want?" He said, "Now our intellectual orientations seem to converge, Your Excellency, the mayor. I want 2 very simple things. The first, I want a simple recommendation from you for my promotion, and the second, I want you to ask the top administration in the country to ban and eliminate X-gangs in the city." The mayor was silent and told the chief of police that, "You are asking too much," and he said, "And you did a lot, but do I not deserve little of you?" "Don't worry." The mayors responded, "Let I think about the matter, and I will make what you have said one of my priorities, and I will respond to you soon." Then the police chief left with joy for this achievement. Immediately the police chief called Philip to foretoken his promotion and redemption from X-gang, and Philip shared joy with him. Joan and Andrew were receiving the news more joyfully than Philip and the chief of the police. and their plan was proceeding with great success that they did not expect. After 2 nights, Andrew was in the mayor's house and the mayor was afraid of the chief of the police, and that he would expose him and reveal his matter. Andrew told him not to be afraid, the end is approaching for this stupid. Everything is planned and the plan is going better than we expect. But you must help me with what I will tell you and I guarantee that the police chief will be absent forever. The mayor said, "How I wish that. This person has become a burden on me, threatening me on all levels. Please Andrew, I do not want my reputation to be distorted, because my family has no responsibility for everything I did, and I will go to prison and my efforts of all these years will be lost." Andrew said to him, "Do not be afraid, we are really worried about you." Andrew told the mayor, "I want you to meet the chief of police and ask him for a bribe to carry out what he asked you to do." The mayor said, "Do you understand what you are saying? Do you ask me to ask for a bribe? And I am the mayor and the police chief works under my command?" He said, "It is just a farce. Just let me finish my talk and you will understand. In the meantime you have to tell the supreme authority in the country that the country's police chief is taking bribes from gangs and they have to send informants to confirm of this case." Fear began to hit the mayor's heart and told him that he wanted the supreme authority to be outside all agreements. So Joan told him that this was the best way to get rid of the police chief and that the plan would succeed. The mayor agreed after trouble and said to Andrew, "What the next step is?" So he told him not to use any agreement between you and the chief of the police through contacts. Make your speech with him orally in order not to prove any agreement with you, and ask him for $1 million to implement his demands. Meanwhile, Jerry requested from Nelson to install a wiretap devices in Philip's office to monitor all his communications to know when the police chief would receive the bribe from Philip. And all Philip's communications were already monitored and Jerry was given all the details. The mayor asked his secretary to call the police chief and attend a meeting with the mayor. Indeed, the police chief came quickly with new news from the mayor regarding his demands. And when he did attend, the mayor asked the police chief verbally for the sum of $1 million and the police chief said to him, "Why all this amount?" He said to him, "Do you think that I am a fool of your request from me to eliminate the X-gang for free? Do you think that I don't know that you will receive more than this amount from Philip's gang in exchange for eliminating the X-gang?" The chief of police looked at the mayor and said, "I did not know that you are so shrewd and experienced in gang work. But your request seems logical, and I will present this agreement to Philip." Then the mayor interrupts him and said, "Will I wait until this criminal agrees to my demands, and I am the mayor? You must tell me now whether you agree or not, because you and they are alike." He said, "Do not worry, he will agree. I consider that the amount is already in your possession, Your Excellency, the mayor." He went back a little, bowed and lowered his hat. "See you later, the mayor," and he left. Anderson was following up on the calls until he heard that Philip received a call from the chief of police informing him of demands of the mayor and the amount he requested. Philip gladly agreed and told him that he was pleased, and he replied to him immediately that the mayor wanted him cash and did not want a bank transfer, and Philip agreed. The news was coming to Joan, successively, and he was saying that they would end soon. "I will take revenge soon." He was very enthusiastic about those moments when they were arrested. Philip called the police chief telling him that the money bag was ready and how he could meet him to give him the money. It was agreed that they would meet in one of the city streets. The police chief, in civilian clothes, to avoid the curiosity of the people in the street. So the two agreed, and Anderson knew the location of the meeting and told Jerry, who, in his turn, told Andrew. Andrew personally came to the mayor at his house and told him about the place where Philip would meet the police chief and receive the money. He said to him, "What do you want me to do?" "He will bring the bribe to hand it over to me. Isn't that what we agreed on?" Andrew said, "You are right, but not as you understood it. Listen, are the informants still in the city watching the chief of police?" He said they are already in town, and then he told him to call them. "And tell them that your own sources told you that the chief of police will receive a large bribe from the gang boss and that this is the time and place of the bribe." The mayor was surprised by Andrew's intelligence and said, "Yes, it is a great idea, and that you are working under the command of an extraordinary man. It is an idea that no one can think of, even I did not understand anything of your planning until now. He said, hurry, they will meet in 3 hours from now. Philip met with the chief of the police, and Philip got down with the bag of money and entered the police chief's personal car and gave him the money, and in the meantime a car stopped with 2 armed men and ordered them to raise their hands. And their hands were tied and they were put in their car, and the bag was kept in a sack, and they did not touch it so that the fingerprints of Philip's hands and the police chief's hands could not be mixed. The chief of the police and Philip were found guilty of bribery in the amount of $1 million. In the investigation, the chief of police stated that the money is indeed a bribe. But it was for the mayor, and the mayor was summoned for investigation and he denied that matter, and he said, how am I the person who will take the bribe and at the same time, and I am the person who reported the bribery? And I have reported him to the higher authority before? How do you prove, the chief of the police, that the bribe is mine, not yours? He said, you have previously agreed with me on that. He said, do you have physical evidence condemning me, or do you speak like this without any evidence? For example, was there any communication or a letter specifying a date or any kind of agreement in this regard? The chief of the police realized that he had indeed fallen into a trap and a date for the trial was set. The lawyer could not acquit the chief of the police or Philip, who had told them in his visits to them in prison that they were highly convicted. The mayor had submitted a report to the higher authorities before they were arrested accusing you of bribery, and there were informants who were commissioned to watch you both, and you have already been arrested. The trial took place and the verdict was pronounced, which was the dismissal of the chief of the police from his position and imprisonment for both of them for 20 years in prison. At the time when the verdict was pronounced, the mayor was present at the trial, as was Andrew, who did not appear officially, and was at the end of the rows listening to the verdict. And before the verdict was pronounced, he switched on his mobile phone. He had called Joan and Joan was listening to the verdict and listened to the judge saying it explicitly. Dismissal of the chief of the police from his position and imprisonment of both of them for 20 years. After the verdict was pronounced, he heard the chief of police and Philip screaming. Joan hung up the phone and said, I think I will sleep this night so deeply that I have not slept since I came to this city. The mayor left the court and Andrew followed him and said to him without turning to him, did not I tell you that we are worried about you as well? The mayor turned to him and smiled and completed his way. In the city, Jerry's gang took over what was left of the city and the members of Philip's gang were ousted, who, in turn, left the city, fearing Gang X. And after learning that their leader had been arrested and that they would not see him until after 20 years, members of Gang X entered the headquarters of Philip's gang and seized weapons and drugs. Gang X has become one of the strongest gangs in the country, not just in the city, and everyone has become fearful of them, and even wished to work with them. And Joan became at the height of his criminal power and was in complete control of the city where no drug was sold or nothing got out of it without his knowledge. Nothing was kept for him to complete his happiness except getting out in public and people's knowledge of him, but he does not want to appear as a criminal that was stuck to him by the former chief of the police. Philip and Stephen, he wants to appear to them as he was before he entered the university. Joan ordered Andrew to open an import and export company and to hire men and actually start business, and any smuggling or drug sales do not enter into this company, but only to work in import and export, and this is exactly what Andrew did. And after the company's business went as he thinks, Joan passed by Andrew in the apartment, not in his house, and he said to him, how many times I told you, Andrew, the day will come when you will know answers to all your questions. Andrew said, several times. And I still look for many answers from you. Joan said, you will know now all answers to your questions and you will know me, Andrew, and he revealed his face. Andrew was astonished at Joan's face and could not speak. John initiated him saying, what was wrong with you? He said, I expected you to be a big man, and evil is emanating from your face. You are a young man, not a big one. Oh, my God. What is this? I did not expect you to be like this. Even in a large proportion and without any feeling, Andrew stood up and hugged Joan and said, sit down, I need a week to understand everything. Joan began explaining to Andrew about his story from the day he left the village until today. Andrew was astonished at what he heard and said, "Indeed, your story is unbelievable. How could you take revenge on them and kill Stephen?" Joan said to him, "Yes, I took revenge on those who lost my future and distorted my reputation, and deprived me of all my family and made me homeless in the forest throughout this period." Joan and Andrew agreed to meet the mayor for an important matter. Indeed, the interview took place at the mayor's house. And upon the meeting, the mayor said to Andrew, "Who is this nice young man, Andrew?" Andrew laughed and said, "This is Mr. X, Mayor." The mayor was astonished at what he heard and said, "Do you want to convince me that who runs the gangs in the east and center of the city and has all the money and drugs and this influence is this nice young man? Trust me, if this young man meets me in the office and I was told that he stole $1, I will not believe what is said to me." He told him, "I swear for you, this is Mr. Joan, known throughout the country as X." Joan and Andrew explained the details of his entire story while he was absorbed in listening, not believing everything, and after completing the story, the mayor said to him, "Dear Joan, how can I serve you, Joan?" Joan said, "I want to be innocent in front of justice and in front of the people. This is all I ask of you." The mayor was silent and said that this matter will require some communications, but do not be afraid, I will manage. The two left the mayor's house and Joan did not cover his face in the meantime, but he was careful not to see him, as he is still in the eyes of the people a criminal, a fugitive from justice. And he is afraid that he will be arrested and handed over to the police and put himself, Andrew's friend and the mayor, in an embarrassing situation. The import and export company continued to operate and was successful and competed with all import and export companies in the country. Joan was keen on this success because his plan was to start working in it with Andrew after his innocence, but he was excluding this because of its difficulty. After a short period of time, the mayor called Joan and told him, "I have contacted a colleague of mine who works as a lawyer now," and I explained to him, out of our friendship, what happened. I did not meet Joan, but I received an anonymous letter from Joan pleading with me to appeal his judgments, and I am really affected by this incident, and I asked him about the possibility of appeal. And he said that he cannot appeal the judgment unless he receives a call or at least an email from Joan stating this request. Andrew was happy and told him to call him a week later and tell him that Joan called you in your office asking about the mayor's response to the letter he addressed to you, and that you really asked Joan if he was honest to send an electronic email to the lawyer if you were really afraid of the police, and this is what had actually happened. The mayor has already called the lawyer. The mayor told him everything that the lawyer said. He will start arguing for Joan as soon as the email arrives, provided that he mentions in the email everything that happened that night and does not forget to mention the most accurate details. The lawyer was brilliant and was chosen by the mayor because he knows that he is like that. In addition, he is his friend and will help him with all that he has. The lawyer received the email and actually started the case, which continued for many sessions. The lawyer questioned the former police chief and the gang leaders at the time by defrauding Joan and fabricating charges against him. Jerry summoned Nelson and told him that X is telling you that he will get you out of prison with his known influence, if you acquit that man who took the bag of money and drugs, and he promises you to do that. Nelson went to visit Philip and the police chief in the prison and said to them that X has summoned me because of my closeness to you, Philip, and he told me if you clear that boy, you will be released from prison. So Philip said, I will not help him even if I spend my life in prison. So the chief of police turned to Philip and said, what will you lose? Are you already in prison and X has power that you do not know? As he was controlling the mayor in a way that you cannot imagine, and you will not suffer from any harm. You can say that who organized this alleged ambush is a man you know, and at the very least estimation, X will be able to reduce the punishment for us, as there is no hostility between us and him. So Philip agreed and said to Nelson, tell X that I agree. Joan received the news and he said, listen, Andrew, what do Philip and the police chief say? That there is no hostility between us, and they are my bitter enemies, and he started laughing. Joan says, they have swallowed the prank, they will die of oppression. Joan said, as usual, you will know, Andrew, in the proper time, and you will be a witness to what I say.